What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and this is a Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what it's all about, whether it is a true flagship Ultra device for this year, whether it's worth its expensive price tag, and the full story of how it compares to the world of other Android devices, both available in North America and globally, and also just the current state of the smartphone industry in North America. And I feel like the general consensus of the S25 lineup has been that same level of complacency where design hasn't changed in many years, features are pretty good and solid overall, but when compared to what you have the option of importing out there, it just seems like it's a bit behind. And even though it is still an ultimate flagship smartphone, at the price point, you're just not exactly getting what is the best available in the world, even though the price would expect that. I did do a video comparing the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra with the OnePlus 13, the Vivo X200 Pro, as well as the Oppo Find X8 and the Honor Magic 7 Pro. So if you guys want to check that out and see how the top flagship phones in 2025 that have come out recently compare against each other, I'm going to leave a link down below when that is out. So when it comes to the design, I actually really like what Samsung has done this year. It's a bit different. I've checked out a lot of rounded phones, but I actually really like the boxy design. That titanium finish is absolutely beautiful, and especially in this color option where I have like that contrast of titanium band and the black finish on the back, I really do think it is a good medium. It doesn't show fingerprints too easily. It isn't like a true stealth black that I know some people love, but I've come to really like the raw titanium look on the devices, and it does feel a bit sharper, but I feel like I can get a good grip. The screen is nice and large, and I think from a productivity standpoint, it just gives you the maximum amount of screen real estate. It is a 6.9-inch display, which is just a tad larger thanks to the thinner bezels, but the device itself is one that has kind of become synonymous of the Samsung lineup to being a bit of a boxier feel. And I think that is great for enjoying multimedia, but also taking advantage of features such as the S Pen. When it comes to the back of it, very clean and minimal. It has the 4-camera setup, and there are these like large rings. And you guys know I don't really like it when cameras are on one side, because if you place it on a table, especially for a device of this size, it does rock quite a bit. So I kind of like a more symmetrical layout, and these large pronounced rings have apparently been added on just for the visual aspect of it. But yeah, they really did try to make it stand out, but I do think it is a very beautiful phone. On the front, you have the little pinhole camera, and it also has a new generation of Corning glass, which is able to give it that extra durability when it comes to drops and scratches. But from a hardware standpoint, I think if you're coming from a Samsung device before, it is going to be very, very familiar for quite a few generations now, from what I can remember. If you like that, then great, but generally speaking, the feel of the device is very similar. And if you take a look at the last 5, 6, or 7 years of the Samsung lineup and the iPhone lineup, there is kind of a common trend. There hasn't been any fundamental changes in the design, whereas phones in China, for example, have had different materials, whether it is ceramic, having cameras on one side integrated within, going back and forth between a circular center layout, which we saw a lot of in 2024 and 2025. And even though I do like some aspect of consistency, I do feel like as an iPhone user, as a daily, it just kind of feels too similar, to the point where I feel like every year I'm getting the exact same phone. The display is still one of the best on the market. It has a peak brightness of 2600 nits, and it is a QHD Plus resolution, 120Hz AMOLED display, still pretty vibrant, great for multimedia. It doesn't have any sort of curve to it, which I actually really like. And you also have the option to use the S Pen, which I think is still one of the great additional features on Samsung devices that Samsung users live by when they do use it. Really good for productivity, allows you to annotate things, and it's just like a really work-focused phone in my opinion. That's kind of what I described the design of it. It's very elegant, it's durable, it's serious, but at the same time loaded with features, and I think the design is built very well around it without seeming like an afterthought. From a processor standpoint, this device features the latest generation Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is a 3nm architecture, and overall, these phones with their latest and greatest processors, the amount of RAM, the GPU, and all that kind of stuff, and their benchmark scores are all going to perform relatively similarly, with some companies focusing more on the thermals than the others, as well as power efficiency based on the combination of the specs. And the S25 Ultra has pretty good battery life. I haven't experienced any sort of overheating, and performance is top notch. When it comes to the software experience, I think Samsung has done quite a few good things here. Personally, I don't really use Dynamic Island that much because it is something that is usually on the top of the screen on the iPhone, for example. So they've actually made their own variation of that to work on the bottom of the screen. So it allows me to be able to have like quick toggled settings on the lock screen, for example, just a lot more intuitive. And I also find that the software experience is very pleasant, it's fast, it's very Samsung, but there are quite a bit of AI tools, but the software and performance in general has been a really good experience on the S25 Ultra. So as a consumer tech channel and a company that produces videos on the internet, I feel like the thing that we kind of circle our whole theme and experience around is workflows, productivity, how to make that more effective, and also how to be able to create more content, travel the world, and also work more effectively with our team. And I want to give a huge thanks to the sponsor of this video, Monday.com. You guys have probably heard of Monday. I've been using it for quite a few years now, but it is essentially the all-in-one workspace to be able to keep track of all of your tasks, organizational assignments, and also be able to have your files, deadlines, lists, and updates all in one place while being able to track the progress of different assignments and also larger organizational goals in whatever method is the easiest for you. And it's also really good for smart automation, including automatic follow-ups, status updates, and file sharing to save time within the little communications of your team. They have a whole bunch of ready-to-use templates for any industry that you could think of and so many options. And I also love the fact that you're able to have it display your task list in different charts that are visually appealing to you, such as Gantt charts, for example. That is something that I've been using since university. Monday.com can help you solve some of the most common problems in businesses that could cause inefficiencies and take time away from focusing on the core business, what you're good at and what you'd like to spend your time on, which I feel like is a whole theme of the channel. So if you're looking to scale your business or make your work life easier with automations or are managing a new team, I can't recommend Monday.com enough, and you guys can go ahead and try it for free with the link in the description section box below. When it comes to the battery though, it is significantly smaller than some of its direct competitors out there in the Android world. It is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And even though I did find it got an all-day battery life and even a little bit beyond that, considering it has the same chip, very similar display, having a smaller battery at the end of the day is just something that kind of confuses me considering the size of this device. It isn't like it's the smallest, it isn't like it's the thinnest out there, and with 45 watt wired charging, pretty good, but again, there's 80 watt charging out there now, wired, and in terms of wireless charging, it is 15 watts, and it doesn't have Qi 2 built in. You have to get like a case for it, and so, I mean, that's still plenty fast, but there's just better out there. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that later, and I just feel like, I don't know, I expected that to kind of be an upgrade for this generation because I think some people do really care about that. And I personally find that having fast wired charging at the maximum capability possible is sometimes very useful in the middle of the day when my phone is like halfway charged and I just want to be able to top it up towards the end of the day if I have like a late night. As for the cameras, the S25 Ultra still has one of the best cameras on the market. It has a 4-camera setup that focuses on both ultra-wide as well as zoom, and all across the spectrum, it is amongst the best for photo and video once again. You have a 200 megapixel f1.7 wide-angle camera, which is your main camera, a 10 megapixel f2.4 telephoto, 50 megapixel periscope camera, as well as a 50 megapixel ultra-wide that is f1.9, so it lets in plenty of light. But generally speaking, aside from the zoom and the ultra-wide, the camera setup is pretty much the same as the previous generation. But if you're coming from 2 generations ago, you will notice a bit of a difference, but Just not even that big of a difference compared to the previous gen. From an optimization standpoint, as for the consistency of all the cameras, as well as the AI features, hybrid zoom, this phone does an excellent job. And as I take a look at all the photos that I've taken, I feel like my favorite when it comes to a North American available Android phone has always kind of been between the Samsung and the Google Pixel. But if you compare it to something like the OnePlus 13, which is significantly cheaper, that also has a really good camera setup. So I just feel like Samsung has not really improved their lead similarly to what they used to do. Video recording is able to capture in 8K, but I will say it is still one of the most consistent camera performers on the market, just for the price that I'm going to talk about a little bit later towards the end of the video. There are options that actually are noticeably better than the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. So I think as you can tell from this video so far, I found that the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra is a really solid all-around phone. They've really flexed their muscles in areas that they've already done a great job at before. Little refinements to the camera, the hardware is what we know and love, with some refinements in terms of durability, the material, and small design changes as well. But generally speaking, it has followed a very similar path to the iPhone, which is kind of boring from year after year. It's gotten pretty stale, and people always ask me like what the changes are from a previous generation. I don't really have a direct answer for Samsung and Apple sometimes, because a lot of the features that are being added each year or talked about are not ones that the average consumer would be able to justify spending so much money upgrading to just a couple years after they made a big investment on their daily phone. There's obviously more to the experience in terms of the software, the UI, and what you feel at home at. And if you're looking for that and you're used to Samsung, it is still an amazing phone. It just seems like there's quite a bit of complacency in more categories than one. The design can be a pass. It's something that doesn't need to be changed all the time. But the camera is something that I do feel like should be continuously improved and innovated, as well as the battery, the charging, and I think people have very high expectations at this price point. This is a very solid phone, but when I take a look at the experience as a whole, I would say the most compelling factor is actually the design refinements. I think it is so well built. I personally like the bulky design of it, but otherwise, if I were coming from a few years ago, and my phone was working perfectly fine, I'm definitely not spending money to buy it just for its AI features. And there are better options on the market today, some of which are at a lower price, but maybe an improvement from a phone from 2 years ago, and others at the same price, but having noticeably better key features such as the camera. So that is what I think of the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you go ahead and drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.